Now this is it kind of looks like it's becoming an excuse for my drinking problems. It's not. Well, hi, welcome. This setup totally didn't take like a whole less hour, and I'm totally not blinding myself. Welcome, this is Last Meals. You don't care about these shenanigans. If you're new here, this is where I sit. Hey, a girl with no skills, no makeup, no like, you know, knitting and stuff. So what I do instead, I sit and eat somebody's last meal. It's not just an excuse for me to drink. I swear, there's 2 of them by now, but it's not. This case is mental. It's gonna blow your mind. I was just like, I have to cover it. I have to drink. It's part of the job. That's what people tell themselves. I eat somebody's last meal. That's where I got carried away. Yes. They're usually on a death row, or sometimes they're just in prison and they got like, you know, their last meal was what they ate last. And as you know, if you watch The Last Meals and John George, this shouldn't have been allowed, but you know, it was UK. Yes, we're going to the UK today. It was UK, it was a long ass time ago, so this kind of was allowed, and it wasn't a mixer. I'm doing mixers because I'm a pussy who can't do just alcohol in itself. I'm precious. I don't drink, okay? This is weird. Also, this is my first time drinking Henny. I feel like Drake in this bitch. Not comparing myself to Drake. Let's dive into this case. Case here. Wow, opening Henny for the camera. Ooh, that's that rich money opening skills. Do you have strength to open it? Good questions, audience. Okay, let's just be not super generous, right? Is that enough? You know? I don't even have glasses. Oh my god. Also, I think I spilled it in the hands. Oh my god, I actually bought this glass today. I don't even have glasses for strong booze. I mean, listen, look at me. Can you hold it up? Everything is going wrong today. Every single thing. Can't pour a Coke like a normal person. John Haigh. John Haigh, famously, infamously nicknamed as the bath murderer. Ever heard about him? Yeah, I have not heard about this case, and it's left, right, center just fucked up. So, he was born 24th of July 1909 here in the UK in Lincolnshire. He was born in Stamford, Lincolnshire, and then moved to live just like kind of like west of Yorkshire when he was a child. He was born to John and Emily Haigh, and they... This is the first one, but both of them belong to a Protestant sect, which obviously means, you know, a quirky upbringing. He actually, John himself, said his life was mundane and miserable. What that meant is very much Ed Gein vibes, once you hear actually. So his parents actually, in order to protect his child from like any outside influences, built this like 6-foot fence all the way around their house so nobody can even peek in and he can't peek out. So he had no friends, it's safe to say. He had like a dog as a friend when he was a kid. Just sad. So his parents belonged to this sect that was called Plymouth Brethren, and basically they were really fanatically religious. Like they would tell John that the Lord is always observing. So he's always observing, he's always looking out, like judging him on any wrong deity, any wrongdoing. So his childhood was pretty bleak. Like he wasn't allowed to bring any friends home, he wasn't allowed to hang out with anybody after school. Bible stories were the only form of entertainment. He wasn't even allowed to play sports. Now, as somebody with slight anger management issues, you know that this is not gonna go end well. Like, he needs to release his energy somewhere, or he's gonna start doing really weird shit pretty soon. His dad even imprinted in his head, and you know how kids are impressionable, he even told him he had this like blue blemish on his forehead, probably a birthmark, but he said, no, this is because I was naughty as a kid and I have been touched by the devil. And look at your mom, she doesn't have any blemishes because she's an angel. Lord is always looking. In a typical Gein fashion, they have told him that the world is evil and that they need to keep themselves separate and isolated, not to be, you know, touched, not to be sinful, not to be impressioned by the world. They need to be angels. The only hobby as such that his parents let him do, or just entertain himself, was play a piano, but again had to be competitive. So again, the only outing had to be related to that. So he would go to concerts that featured music by like Bach, Tchaikovsky, other people. Vivaldi, Mendelssohn, and many others, according to this article that I read. So despite of his childhood, he managed to go and get really good education, like he was pretty smart. And from all the records, he didn't actually start his life in crime until he was about 21 years old. So he won 2 scholarships. One was for Queen Elizabeth Grammar School in Wakefield. Then the second one was for Wakefield Cathedral, where he became a choir boy. After school, he took this apprenticeship to become a motor engineer. He did well then, but like he quickly moved to insurance and advertising. And this is kind of where the problem started, because he was 21 now and he was dismissed from this job from stealing from a cashier box. Because he was familiar with this Wakefield education community, then he went to be a clerk, but that kind of lasted like every job that he had lasted very short term, up to a year at best. Then he went back to insurance and he got really good at finance, to the point that he succeeded briefly up until about he was 21, to the point that he even managed to get a bright red car, bright red Alfa Romeo. When he was only 23 years old, so in 1934, he got married to Betty Homer, but because he was kind of scamming every business, he was in prison for fraud. And while he was in prison, Betty gave birth to the child. She gave birth to a baby girl, but because, well, she wasn't really in love with him any longer, she realized like he is about the life of crime and he was in prison, she gave the girl up for adoption and just left him, like, divorce, bye. Of course, when he came out of the prison, his family was like all loving and accepting, was like, yeah, come here, let us hug you and continue with life. Wrong. Wrong, they ostracized him. They're like, we want nothing to do with you. So what does he do? He gets a job. He gets a job as a chauffeur for William McSwan. William was a wealthy owner of these amusement arcades, so John would work for him both as a chauffeur and he would also maintain these arcades. Obviously, as this was kind of short-lived as well, he then moved on to be a solicitor apparently, and his fake name was William Cato Adamson. He said that he had 3 offices, one here in Chancery Lane, one in Surrey, one in Sussex. But obviously he wasn't actually legally doing anything, he was just scamming people. So he was scamming his deceased clients by selling the fraudulent stock shares from their estates, so once they were dead. But they caught him because he misspelled Guildford, so on one of the letterheads, you know, for the clients, he misspelled Guildford without a D, so it was just Guildford. And they were like, yeah, this doesn't sound like a real solicitor, so they caught him, he got 4 years for fraud. And then, yeah, he served that, he was released just around the start of Second World War, and then just continued frauding people. Frauding. And just continued being a fraudster. On one of his arrests, I think this is during prison. That's the thing, like some sources say it's during his prison sentence and some say it's outside. It's really weird if it is during his prison though. But one part is weird. He realized the problem why he's constantly getting in prison is not that he is doing anything wrong. It is that he is leaving people alive to tell the tale. So he was like, the solution is obviously to kill them, not to leave any witnesses lying. Such a reasonable young man. While in prison, he was reading this book and it mentioned the crime of Georges Alexander Sarret, who was a French murderer who in 1925 murdered people and then would dissolve their body in acid. Jeffrey Dahmer, you're not the first, not the last, not the first. But what he realized is that this is an effective method of disposal, and then he practiced it on mice. That's the part that nobody says, was it outside or in the inside, which I mean, if it was in prison, I know it was different times, but still. So he practices, he experiments with mice, right? This is when the story gets super fucking weird. He practices with mice and he discovers that it takes about 30 minutes for one mice to dissolve in acid completely. So he is doing the math in his head, like how many mice compose a human body, that times 40 minutes, this is how it will take to dissolve a human body. Get a hobby, this is what happens when your children don't have hobbies. Now we move on to 1944, where Haigh actually had an accident. And as we know, with a lot of serial killers, they usually have like some blow to the head. Usually in the childhood. John Haigh was a bit special. So he had this accident and he was wounded from this car accident to the point that his wound bled into his mouth, and he said this was a trigger for him. This is what started his blood-filled nightmares, which kind of turned into like a fetish, you could say. And this is around the time when he set up a workshop at 79 Gloucester Road, which is the space that he is gonna use to lure his future victims. During this time, he combined two of his passions. He was working as an accountant for the engineering firm. And during this time, on, one of those pub days, on one of those occasions where he would just go to the pub with his colleagues, he meets William McSwan again, remember, his ex-employer. And William is just chatting with him, and he mentions his parents, Donald and Amy, and how he's just making a living collecting the rent from like various properties that his parents are renting out. And our boy John there is just sitting there and simmering like, lavish lifestyle, great lifestyle, don't you live it? I was your chauffeur, you seem to be living this amazing fucking lifestyle, I envy you a lot, but he doesn't say it, right? So after this pub, they kind of arranged to meet again. He's like, why don't you come to my location, this goat pub is kind of, it's too loud in here. We should have like just a drink, at my location is 79 Gloucester Road. So on one such occasion, William Swan comes there, and probably they were just chatting before John went behind him, smacked him with like some hard object, killed him, and then submerged his body into this 40-gallon barrel and submerged it into sulfuric acid until he was dissolved. Then he just poured him down the drain, and he buried things like his bones or his teeth in the garden. Now, on top of this, he goes to his parents, he goes to Donald and Amy, and he says, oh, your son, yeah, we just met, and he told me he's going to Scotland, he just needs to avoid being called for military service. And then he takes William's place and starts basically collecting rent from different people renting out places for Donald and Amy. But they obviously become suspicious. And now John can't have that. He can't have like people suspecting him, because again, what if they discover him? He doesn't want to go back to prison, so in his mind he has to kill Donald and Amy. He tells them, come to 79 Gloucester Road. William McSwan came back from Scotland for a surprise visit. Again, once they were there, he just hits them. He again does the same disposal, uses the same disposal method to dispose of Donald and Amy. Then obviously he collects their pension checks, he sells their properties, so he amassed about 10k, and at the time 10k was a lot more, didn't check how much more, but probably in hundreds of thousands compared like in today's money. On top of all of this, by 1947 he gets into gambling as well, and a couple of things happen during that time. So he meets this other couple, he meets Rose and Archibald Henderson, and they were basically selling their house and they have found another place to move in. So John appeared to fake an interest into this property that they're selling. He mentions that he actually played piano, he played it sort of professionally as well as a kid, and they were like, oh my god, come to our housewarming party, to our new house, and play piano for us. Rose would love it, I would love it, so he does. And once John goes to their house and plays the piano, he's kind of scouting the surroundings, and he takes Archibald's revolver. He basically steals it from the property. Around this time, he also moved his drum and all of the acid in it to Sussex, to like a workshop there. So it was like, it's too suspicious, it's Gloucester Road. Gloucester Road is kind of a super rich area now, probably wasn't as much back then, although he did steal a lot of money from people, so I'm not sure. Now this workshop is where he lures the people that he wants to kill, because now Gloucester Road can actually be his home, it doesn't fall under so much suspicion. So he lures the Hendersons. Well, first he lures Archibald to workshop. He's like, remember how I'm an engineer, wannabe motor engineer? So he lures him to show him his invention in these workshops in Sussex. And once Archibald is there, John shoots him with his own revolver. Once Archibald is dead, he disposes of him. Then he lures Rose by telling her that during this visit, Archibald has fallen ill and he's dying basically, he's on his deathbed. When Rose comes, he does the same. He obviously then takes the property, actually sells it for around £8,000, and the only two things that he kept was their car and their dog. After these murders, now he's thinking, well, now I have all this money, I have 10,000 from here, 8,000 from here, I've killed 5 people. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rent a huge ass place where, I can live and also Acid can live here as well. He rents this place on Leopold Road, and this is gonna be where he kills his last victim. Now, one other thing that our John Haigh boy was famous here, apart from killing people and just submerging them into acid because he practiced on mice, genius, was for staying at the Onslow Court Hotel. So he used to like come and go regularly again because he's loaded now. And on one such occasion, he meets Olive Durand-Deacon, who was 69, who was a widow now. She was widowed to a war hero and she was suffragette during the wartime as well. Now, she was super keen to engage in conversation with John again because he played the inventor card. And Olive here was interested in that because she has created a pattern for artificial fingernails. I don't know, did I mean acrylic fingernails? I have no fucking idea. So this was the after-war time. Women kind of wanted, you know, to be inventors. Women were really attracted to that idea. So when John was telling her like, I can help you out with this project, listen, I'm gonna patent it all out. Come to my workshop, I'm gonna have blueprints ready for your artificial fingernails, okay, girlfriend? Yeah, you come to my workshop. So she does. And that is the last that people have seen of Olive. Once he had her at Leopold Road, he shot her with the same 39 caliber gun that he stole from Archibald, took her coat and took all of her valuables and submerged her into the acid bath. However, he made a mistake here because women understand true crime, so women know to immediately report their friend missing. Her friend Constance Lane reported Olive missing like within 24 hours. He even obviously had to interject himself into the investigation. He even presented himself to Constance. He was like, I'm gonna bring you to the police, let's report your friend. Oh my god, this is tragic. Yeah, like I was in this hotel, I mean I definitely didn't know her, but so tragic, something happened like under the same roof as me. And obviously again, because women just understand. They just understand this is creepy, this is weird. Constance here just told the police like, this is a bit strange, how about you actually go to where he lives and kind of investigate? So the officer did. And immediately as they go to his backyard, they're like, okay, these appear to be like freshly dug holes. As they look, he didn't even dig and dump this properly. This officer sees gallstones and then sees, this is not funny, it's just so traumatic, like, just so he sees fake teeth just poking out of the ground. He's like, interesting, you know who had fake teeth? Olive. Now we come to the good part, now we come to where they get him. So the police calls the pathologist, the human pathologist Keith Simpson. He comes to the scene and he's like, yeah, there's a lot of body fat, yeah, even though he disposed of it, it's still pretty present. It's human body soup, okay? Then there's the gallstones, there's human teeth, there's part of her foot, so it's pretty clear-cut case. So this goes to trial. Here John really tries to go to Broadmoor, which again just shows that he's not smart. Broadmoor, if you don't know, is this high-security psychiatric hospital which has hospitalized some of the weirdest patients and some of the most deranged. Yorkshire Ripper was hospitalized there, Silent Twins, I covered that one on the podcast. There's a lot of infamous cases that would go to Broadmoor, but it's exactly that. It would just be as mundane as his actual life, and people usually don't get out of there. So it's kind of like the last resort, but he's like, no, I must play insanity. So at trial, he was so lax that he even spoke with the judge and he was like, so what would be the chances of me getting out of this Broadmoor hospital? And the judge was like, I can't discuss that with you. What is the problem? But he never thought death penalty would even be on the table because, well, he had two reasons. The first reason is that he was gonna go for the insanity defense because his smartass thought if he claims he's insane, then everybody's gonna believe. I was gonna be like, yeah, he's claiming it, he must be nuts, he must be insane, like he's saying it himself. Like what sane person would say they're insane? His second reason was, again, this whole disposal process was because he thought if the police wasn't to find a body, they can't give him a death penalty, where he was mistaken. They could. Didn't really study law, did you, mate? Which was incorrect because if they had parts of the body, plus if they had like any other evidence, and he kept her handbag, he literally didn't dispose of anything. He kept like her coat, he even had a coat dry clean. That's a cocky bastard. So yeah, the prosecution didn't really need much, everything was there for Olive at least. And back then, they didn't even have to prove the rest, they didn't even have to prove the rest of the cases. He also said that he killed 3 other people, and he was like, yeah, there was this guy Max, he lived in Eastbourne, and there was this other person in Hammersmith, like, why are you adding up, like? You're not gonna be the most famous of serial killers anyways, you're just a weirdo. During the trial, he said, you know what, like I even had time to go to the cafe, like after I killed Olive, have, you know, some egg on toast, have myself coffee before I got back and disposed of her body in the acid bath. And they're like, yeah, insanity say you, yeah, insanity, right? Our boy John here, however, had one last card to play, and that is he must be insane because he's really into drinking blood. This is the part, I mean, there was different parts of the story where I just like, my mind was blown, but this one pretty beats them all. Okay, I must read this. So he would confess to having dreams not dominated by blood as a young boy. And when he had this car accident in March 1944, his dream returned to him. I saw before me a forest of crucifixes which gradually turned into trees. At first there appeared to be dew or rain dripping from the branches, but as I approached I realized it was blood. The whole forest began to ride, and the trees dark and erect to ooze blood. A man went from each tree catching the blood. When the cup was full, he approached me. "Drink," he said, but I was unable to move. However, most of the psychologists agree that even though he might have suffered from like different psychological conditions, he was not insane. However, one person disagreed, and he said that Haigh suffered from a mental condition called paranoid constitution, and it's the same mental condition that Hitler had. You make out of that what you wish. I have no comment. He actually didn't even have to pay for this trial himself. Well, it's not that he didn't need to pay, it's that he didn't have money to pay because he spent it all. Idiot. So there were these papers called News of the World at that time, and they offered to pay for his trial if he gives them an exclusive interview. And John is like, oh my god, somebody wants an interview with me. Of course, yes. Now, the best part in history, and we know to love this because Daily Mail is just complete shite. Daily Mail got in trouble because they had this journalist publish that he was a vampire. Like, okay, that wasn't confirmed. This is fake news. The newspaper editor Sylvester Bolam at the time had to spend 3 months in prison because of this, and Daily Mail had to pay 10k to the court in restitution, like court costs. They're like, yeah, you just bullshitting, like this was never proven, he was drinking blood, you know, because he... So after all this evidence was presented, after the psychologists brought their decisions, their final diagnosis, if you wish, was that he was eccentric paranoiac. So yeah, that was it, not insane. So the jury only took 15 minutes and they found him guilty, and then the judge was like, any last words? He was like, nothing at all. So the judge was like, yeah, I sentence you to die. I sentence you to death penalty, you're gonna hang until dead. I love that they have to specify it back then. It's like, no, we need to specify. It needs to be written in small letters. You need to hang until you die. As to his motive, he said like, well, it's easier than having like a 9-to-5 job. Hey, do YouTube, I don't know what to tell you. You know, do freelance, do YouTube. Oh, wait. And then just to confirm what kind of piece of shit he is, he says that he never wondered if this was right or wrong. He just decided this is what I wanted to do. So basically he just considered himself to be above the law. They did things pretty quickly back then. He spent only about 3 weeks in prison and was only actually hung about 6 months after his last murder. The weirdness in this case doesn't end there. Even though he spent only 3 weeks in prison, he had Madame Tussauds, yeah, of the famous museum in London, come to the prison to take his measurements because they were gonna put him up in the museum. So they spent hours just taking his measurements. He even donated some of his clothes. He's like, yeah, this is what I wanna wear. He had the audacity. Do you know who Madame Tussauds is, mate? He had the audacity when these people came to take his measurements and everything. Was like, listen, my hair must always be perfectly creased. My cufflinks must always be in perfect condition. My trousers cannot be creased. I would not allow myself ever to wear my trousers creased. And they're like, we got it. This is not pleasurable for any of us, you egoistical maniac. Now for the weirdest part of this case, he even asked he was chatting with one of those prison guards, right? And he was like, listen, so the executioner, right? Listen, I would suggest that they come in and they weigh me in because I appear to be lighter than I actually am. Me too, right? Same problem, same issue. So he just wanted to make sure that, you know, when the executioner drops him from the gallows, that, you know, that they know exactly how he was supposed to hang and for how long. And this guy was like, yeah, actually the executioner is Albert Pierpoint. Ever heard about him? He is quite famous. He has hung about 435 to 600 people. Albert Pierpoint, when I read his name, I was like, why do I know this guy? It's exactly because of that, because he was famous for how many people he executed. So like, we think he knows what he's doing, but wow, your ego is just next level. Another thing during those 3 weeks is he would write to his parents, but none of them came to visit. His parents were just cold, ice called to the very end, this family man. So his parents didn't come to visit. His mom sent greetings via a reporter. She's like, hey, you're getting all these interviews anyways, like just tell him hi from me. Now again, kind of just before he was to be executed, he had this conversation with the same guard who was probably just fed up of him by this point. And he asked him, can I have a trial run? And the guard was like, wait, what you mean a trial run? It's a hanging, like you're hung until dead. Remember that part? He's like, I just wanna ensure that I die. I am just here to help you. I just need to ensure everything goes smoothly. And they're like, we got it. Like, the guy hung about 600 people. You think like he's gonna struggle hanging you? Who do you think you are, mate? So on August 10th, 1949, just before his execution, he was asked by one of these guards, probably the same one who he was asking all these weird questions to, like, do you want, you know, a shot of brandy? He was like, make it a large one, old boy. Condescending, a bit judgy, Johnny boy. And he was hung by Albert Pierpoint and Wandsworth Prison. And that's it for the case. Now I have a couple of rapid fire facts, as I call them. So just a couple of fun facts. They're not fun, they're just fucking equally bizarre as this case. Some of his life relics, or whatever you wanna call them, are still displayed in the Black Museum of New Scotland Yard. A couple of those are the gloves that he used and the apron that he used to protect himself from this acid while he was submerging victims. But then there are also Olive's gallstones, teeth, and the revolver he used to kill them. Why? The girlfriend he dated, Barbara, actually said that like she fully believes that had she continued dating him, had he not actually been in prison and sent to death, that she was probably to become one of his victims. His parents said that they believe God is gonna forgive him. And people kind of speculate why the judge, so the Judge Humphreys that presided over his case, actually became a resident at the same hotel where John used to reside, remember the hotel, and where he met his last victims. They were like, I know you were like, you know, friendly towards people that you sent on death row, but why you do that? Remember the times when people used to freaking reside in hotels? That was a blast. But yeah, that's it for this case. Load. This was a whirlwind. I don't even like to drink that much of this Henny, but it is nice, not gonna lie, it's nice. What other things could you mix with Henny? Oh my god, you know what? Drop me in the comments. Like, yeah, drop me what you think about this case, you know, further suggestions, all of that. But, see Coke, right? I'm of a belief, if you want to see a video on this, please tell me, let me know. I'm of a belief that I could pass a blind test when it comes to Coke. I could tell which one is which. Because I hate Diet Coke, so I can kind of recognize that taste. And then the fat one is full of sugar, and then I mostly drink black, right? I will not fail on that. Wow. Yeah, that's what everybody's here for, to listen to your Coke stories. But that's it for this week. Let me know what you thought. Why do you think he killed? Was he just like full of ego, full of shit? Did he just kill to prove himself that he can? Who a sad, depressing childhood, man. You know, 6 feet fence, like not being able to see anybody, not being able to like release all this energy through like some sports or something. But yeah, not pitying him at all. I just thought this case was fascinating. It like left, right and center turns. It's different weird ass quotes. So yeah, I had to cover it. I had to drink. It's part of the deal. But yeah, until next Friday, you know how the world goes, you know it. I'll remember it in a sec. Enjoy your next meal as if it was your last. Cheers and goodbye.